those trips down there were so beneficial because I turned my car into a mobile university. And I listened to podcasts, I listened to books. I did so much personal development during that time that I feel like really laid the groundwork, and not just personal, but I did a lot of professional development too. I learned a lot, became a student of the industry, which was what my husband had done when he was very active in the business. And so um, it really positioned me. It was such a hard time for me with the things that we were going through personally, but had I not gone through that, I don't think I would be sitting here today telling you about this new business that I've started. I don't think I would have ever gone in that direction. I don't know what I would be doing.
Welcome back to Spotlight with Britt, an inspirational podcast full of stories of perseverance, faith, and the ability to fail forward. You will hear stories of hope and happiness, downturns and defeat, but all in all, a positive look on things that we might not see as such beautiful spots of light in our life.
Open up my hands, you open up my eyes, I let go. All I am is yours.
Welcome back to Spotlight with Britt. And in this episode, I'm so excited to have Miss Beverly Smith here. We have been talking ever since I decided to start this podcast about you coming on here because I just love you. Again, we met at the chamber. A lot of people, if you've noticed, a lot of them have come from the chamber in my interviews. But Beverly, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and tell us what you did when I met you at the chamber and now what you're doing.
Awesome. Yeah. So we met in the networking group that you're still in. That was a lot of fun. We met a lot of really cool people. But at the time, my husband and I owned a staffing business, which we started the original business back in 1995, and we went independent from our franchise in 2000. So tells you how long we were in staffing and recruiting. Did a lot of really cool stuff there, but long story, we kind of burned out and really were anxious to go and do something different. My husband really wanted to get out of town.
Yeah.
And so we had a farm that we just would go and visit on the weekends. It's actually been in my husband's family for a long time, and so it's just been kind of a fun place. We've taken Bo there since he was very little. I've got baby pictures of Bo there. So it's just been a really cool getaway place. And so we just got a wild hair. I mean, you remember I was kind of blowing and going pretty strong, and it was like a wild hair. And you talk about God's timing in all of this, because my thought process in closing a business or selling a business is that, oh, this is kind of a long-term project. It's going to take us a few years. And that's what I was talking to my husband about. I was like, hey, because he really had kind of taken a back seat in the business, and he was doing some other projects and things like that with some other people. And so I was like, okay, let's really make a plan and do this. And he's like, yeah, why don't we just close our doors? And I was like, are you kidding me? I don't quit. You know, that was my first thing, was I don't quit. And so we eventually just decided in about a 6-week time that that's what we're going to do. Well, God provided someone to buy our book of business.
I remember that. That was awesome.
It was just like, and then after that, we reached out to a friend, and she was able to, she never listed our house. Her brother-in-law wanted to move back to Arkansas. Our house was a perfect fit for him. He happened to be in town for something else. He came and looked at it, FaceTimed his wife. She came back the next weekend. They gave us exactly what we needed on it, and because they could not close on their house before November, they gave us 3 months to get out. So
Wow.
it
That
was
never
just,
happens.
I know, never. And so it all was just kind of God really put the pieces together for us to make all of this happen. And it was really cool. And before we even closed career staffing and turned over our book of business to someone that we actually knew, that's a whole nother
Oh
story.
yeah. That's right. I remember you saying that.
But and how that all unfolded was really kind of cool, and someone that we had actually wanted to work for us years ago. So
Yeah.
it was just really, really neat. But I started having people reach out to me going, will you help me with my job search? Will you look at my resume? Will you write a resume for me?
Mhm.
I had a contract position offered to me that I just really was not in a position to take at the time, but it just to me was reaffirming that we were on the right process with everything that we were doing. And so I told several people, I'll write. I did a few resumes, but ultimately I started telling people October. I can do this in October, and I thought no one's going to call me. Well, lo and behold, someone I met through networking, not through the chamber, but I did meet him through networking. Called me. He'd called me that summer, and I told him October, and he called me back and he said, I'm ready. And I'm like, oh, I don't really want to do this. But we're going to do it. I had so much fun working with him.
Yeah.
He was just, the quality of people we've met through networking. He was one of them. He was a wonderful person to work with. CEO of a nonprofit organization, which was really cool. And what he was wanting to do on his next path was really interesting to me, and it just really spoke to my heart. And so, long story short, I was like, okay, that kind of planted a seed. So the very next month, I am looking at my emails, and I get an email from an association of resume writers and career coaches, and they have all these Black Friday sales, and one of them is how to make a course on how to make a business. And I thought, okay, God, I hear you loud and clear. And so that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
And so to bring it forward I actually specialize and I work with mid, senior, and executive level professionals. I help them not only with their resumes, but the other documents that they need. I actually don't write the resumes. I have scaled my business. My writers I work with are award-winning. They're multi-certified. I have one of my writers that writes board resumes, which is really a whole cool niche that I had never considered before.
Wow.
So lots of really cool things going on, and we also work with branding strategies for LinkedIn, so we can help them with their LinkedIn profiles, help them really get set up and functioning on LinkedIn. And then also what I do personally is I coach. I coach on job search. I coach on interview strategies, salary negotiations, those kinds of things. And it's just, I feel like I'm in my zone of genius, which was always the part I loved about the staffing side, but I didn't really get to do that. And so it's just been a lot of fun doing something new.
Yeah, and it's been so cool to get to see, because I remember when we met, you were really just in the thick of things, and I had come out and visited your office out in Maumelle and met some of the people that were working for you. And then when you said that, time's come, I'm retiring, we're done, we're gonna have a farm, we're gonna do this homesteading thing, and I was like, that's cool, awesome. And then a couple months go by, and then I start seeing a LinkedIn video and another LinkedIn video here, and I was like, and then they started picking up, and I'm thinking, what is she doing? And then when we, because I think you're like an hour or so away from me, and so it's not like we can just hop in the car and say, hey, I'll meet you in 10, we'll have coffee. But I feel like we kind of have one of those relationships that we can just pick up, where we left off. And so, I have the utmost confidence that one day you'll be back in the leads group. But no, if people they don't already know you, Beverly Smith on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Make sure you get connected with her. There's tons of really good information. We were talking about how you you're just
Sure.
a rock star on
Yeah.
LinkedIn with your videos and your education. And that really shined whenever we were listening to that webinar last week that I was
Yeah.
telling you about. Jeff
Mhm.
and I were sitting there, and y'all were just talking about, servant leadership, but also how that can translate into your business and how that can help you even connect more so with your team, and how that can help build your confidence in your employees, and just how that blossoms. And I mean, that was just, that had you written all over it, because you do. I feel like you just exude this personality where you want to help people,
Mhm.
and I think maybe that's one reason why we kind of hit it off so
Yeah.
much. But
And if I remember correctly, I kept really like going, don't you want to come work for me? I would love to have
Oh.
you, or send me someone just like you.
yeah, no, I do remember that. I did, yeah. And I just never thought that I would be sitting here doing this,
I know. It's
But
all worked out.
yeah, I
God's
mean,
plan is great.
exactly. I was gonna say
Perfect.
that exactly. Like, and so this podcast, spotlight. So it's find the positive in things. What's the
Mhm.
bright side? Like
Mhm.
today, Ty and I were going to interview this girl. She's going to be an intern for us for Arkansas Podcast Collaborative for the
Mhm.
nonprofit. I'm literally in my car on the way, and I have a Sprite in my hand, and I mean just all down both my legs. My
No.
shoe, I had Sprite in my wedge, but it's like, you know what? You just got to keep going. Got to the restaurant, had lunch, saw this guy that I hadn't seen in years, and it's just, there are things that the devil's gonna put in your path every
Mhm.
day, and it's
So
like,
true.
even if you get out of that funk, you might wake up on the wrong side of the bed, but you turn that
Uh-huh.
positive mentality on, and then it's like, okay, what all is gonna fall on me, but how am I gonna respond to it,
Uh-huh.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I so easily could have just, I'm going back home, Ty, handle the meeting, I can't, but
Uh-huh.
you just gotta persevere, and that's obviously what you've done, and
So the bright side I saw in that story too was that could have been a Coke.
Oh, yeah.
And
It
then you
could
really
have.
would have had a mess. But it's Sprite. It's clear.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I know, and it's like, hey, my shoes were black, so even though they were
Yeah.
totally covered, couldn't
Mhm.
tell. I do need to go get the car detailed now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we were able to get together and do this.
Yes.
So
It's been a long time coming.
It has been. It has
Uh-huh.
been. I remember when I said I was going to start this, and you said, I want to be on it. Let
Yeah.
me know.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're on the list. Like,
Uh-huh.
of course you are. And so now I want to ask you about the second part of the podcast. What is something, a struggle or a trial, something that you overcame personally or professionally to get you to where you are today?
Yeah. I think those last few years in staffing were so, I'm not even sure what the right words are. They were very challenging for me. My husband had stepped out of the business. My parents their health was not good. And so I was driving about every 4 to 6 weeks to Texas from about 2016 on until my dad passed away in 2018 and my mom passed away in 2021. So other than 2020 when we took a pause because we didn't know what was going on, and finally in October I called my siblings. I was like, do y'all mind if I do this? I've got to go down and see her. This is crazy. I hadn't seen her since February, and so those trips down there were so beneficial because I turned my car into a mobile university. And I listened to podcasts, I listened to books. I did so much personal development during that time that I feel like really laid the groundwork. And not just personal, but I did a lot of professional development too.
Mhm.
I learned a lot, became a student of the industry, which was what my husband had done when he was very active in the business. And so it really positioned me. It was such a hard time for me with the things that we were going through personally, but had I not gone through that, I don't think I would be sitting here today telling you about this new business that I've started. I don't think I would have ever gone in that direction. I don't know what I would be doing. So I think really, I want to say partially embracing that, but I feel like part of me was very reluctant to embrace. You're just in it. You just go through it. You just
Mhm.
push through, and sometimes you just put your head down and go. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and but it worked out. It worked out, and we came out on the other side. Both of us, my husband and I both. I mean, it's just. I feel like I was listening to something on the way down here as I was driving, talking about for every negative situation you go through, there's always going to be a positive outcome that's going to be equal or greater. And I think that's so true. I think my husband and I are in such a better place. We actually have fun together, and we're around each other all the time, which I think some people would be like, "Are you kidding me?" But it's a lot of fun. We have fun together, but it took us a while to get back to that spot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I think that when you're going through, especially like that caregiver's life,
Mm-hmm.
that lifestyle can be so taxing and just
Mhm.
draining mentally and then physically, right?
Yes.
And oftentimes it's emotional because more than likely it's a family, like someone in
Yeah.
your family.
You remember that from your granny?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we had Stephanie Cook with Alzheimer's Arkansas
Mhm.
here, and you just have to find things though to keep yourself refreshed. That's something
Yeah.
that you like, that self care, and I mean, especially that, like, taking in all that
Mhm.
information. It keeps your brain going, and it keeps you thinking on something positive and uplifting.
Uh-huh.
So that way, you can only control yourself, right? You
Right.
and your situation, and then as humans, we have that. I don't want to worry about it, but even if it's something that's out of our control, we still have that thought in the back of our mind. But having something to keep you occupied, and then still going and doing and being
Mhm.
present. I think it does. I think it speaks to your resilience and
Yeah.
then just
Thanks.
where you are now. And I remember when you were taking those drives,
Yes.
and I mean, I can't imagine. Well, I guess I can because my dad lives down in Texas,
Yes.
but it's just it in both of your parents.
Yeah. It was a tough road for both of them.
Yeah.
And just watching them go through that, and like I said, I mean, you can relate to some of that as well. I know, but I actually think the 5-hour trip was really good for me because it gave me time to kind of decompress to some point,
Sure.
especially coming back, just kind of getting me ready to jump back in and removing some of the heaviness. My brother and I got really close during that time too because he was kind of the primary one on the scene dealing with things, and then we were really blessed. We had someone that actually stayed with my mom, so she was able to stay in the house. But I do think you mentioned self-care. If I could go back and do anything different, I would prioritize that more than I did. We just went through a period where we never took a vacation after about 2015. I mean, I think the last vacation to the White River, we were supposed to take one in 2016, and I think we both got sick. And and so, which was crazy. It was in the middle of July, and we both ended up sick and canceled our trip. And so, I think 2015 might have been the last one. No, I take that back. It was 2017 we were supposed to go, and we canceled because we got sick. Because 2016 we did go, and it was just a lot of fun. But yeah, that's a long time to go. And I will tell you, Brittany, one of the things I had no idea when we finally got to the farm and unpacked and kind of settled in, I didn't realize how much I needed to decompress from those last few years. I mean, we'd been through COVID and
Yeah.
just lots of craziness. How are we going to keep people in jobs? How are we going to pay for them? Those kinds of things, and navigating a whole new world, I guess, so to speak,
Yeah.
with employment that we'd never experienced before.
Right. And then that was just right before, you got that last little burst of
Yeah.
this is something new to have to deal with, and
Yeah.
then it was like, now I can leave and spin it and do something different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then you were telling me about the organization that you give back to.
Yeah.
So tell me more. It was
So,
great.
I met Bethany Wallace on LinkedIn several years ago. I mean, back in staffing, and I was attracted to her because she was at the time in the career space. She did some resume writing. She did some career development. Did a lot of interview coaching. She did a lot of work in the HR space too. So our paths kind of intertwined a little bit. So I just followed her. I thought she was really interesting, and I knew she lived in Arkansas, but she wasn't in down here in Little Rock, and where we are.
Yeah.
And so I connected with her actually in person after we moved, because she lives probably the way the crow flies, not very far from where I live, but
Oh, okay.
a lot of mountains and stuff. But she's actually in the Batesville area.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've met in person a couple of times. Her husband has actually come and done some consulting for us on the farm. And
oh, wow.
so Bethany confided in me, I guess about a year ago, that she had the opportunity in her 20s to do mission work, and she kind of pushed it away. And she'd always regretted doing that. And she was really being pulled to go and work for this company that is a Bible translator. And it's a nonprofit organization called Wycliffe Bible Translators. And she had to raise her own funds in order to work for them, which is such an interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I just couldn't even imagine, but she took this leap of faith to do this. And she still does some things on the side, but she kind of like shut down a lot of her consulting work and really focused on there. And so I made a commitment. I was like, if you're going to do this, I'm going to support you. I'm going to become a monthly supporter of yours, and got to witness her raise her own funds. And she's been with them a little bit over a year, and she's just taken, I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm going to pull it up and I'm going to tell you exactly what she's doing, because it's so cool. She is now their Director of Strategic Workforce Planning.
That's so cool.
And globally. So they are in, let me tell you, I want to make sure I tell y'all correctly. They are in 98 countries, and they have 40 units. And they have translated the Bible into 2,200 different languages, and there's still 1,200 that they are trying to translate. Now, I didn't even know there were that many different languages.
Yeah, no.
So I'm assuming we're talking about things like Spanish and Portuguese,
Mm-hmm.
things that are maybe similar but a different dialect, and
Yeah.
there's a little bit of differences. So
Wow.
you know, you go into these remote locations, and I understand from Bethany, there's some teams that we can't know where they are because it's a danger
Oh,
to their safety.
I can imagine.
And so, but yeah, so I'm super excited, and I'm this opportunity when she told me about it was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. When they moved her, she was in an HR function previously, but she's moved into this new role, and it's just so exciting. So I'm not only do I support her, but I'm encouraging people that I know to either be a monthly contributor so that we make sure she stays fully funded, or if you want to do like an annual contribution to Bethany, it's actually to Wycliffe, and it goes into her specifically for her, and then that helps her any months that she has a shortfall. Those one-time contributions or an annual contribution helps her out there. So all this, and she's able to do it remotely, and she has a 10 or 11-year-old daughter that she had previously homeschooled. Well, now they're in kind of a group so she's able to still maintain some of that with her daughter, and so her daughter doesn't want to go back into public school, so that's been really cool. It's just been amazing to watch how God's blessed that whole situation.
I mean, that it's hard for me to. Let me take that back. It's funny that we're having this conversation because we watched a movie recently, and I can't remember the name of it. It's talking about the rapture,
Yeah.
and like this podcast, I initially set out to have it, covering these topics, but also there could occasionally be some discussion about God, and so I'm very glad that you brought that up because we were talking even yesterday in church about like spiritual warfare in Sunday school, and it's like, do you have a prayer that you can pray? Is there a certain situation you're going through in your life right now, and just I'm with you. Like, if it weren't for God, I can tell you I would not be sitting here right now.
Yeah.
Like, I would not have. I know I talked to you about it, and I talked to a lot of my other friends, and everybody that just like was encouraging me to go out and do this and not go back to work for someone else. And it's scary.
It is scary, isn't it?
It's very scary. And I was able to partner with Ty, so I wasn't doing it by myself. But I mean, to know that there are people out there like you and like Bethany, and that we have these stories, and maybe you can't just fully 100% jump and go all in, but you can take those small steps. So maybe where you are now, you're building up to that, being able to exit and do your own thing full time because you've grown it, right? You scaled it like you have.
Right.
And so I'm really glad we had these conversations about this stuff because it is, I want to be able to be a source of hope and inspiration for people. And so I feel like the interviews that we've done and yours, what we're going to be publishing here soon, that it's really going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it kind of goes back to that servant leadership kind of thing, where it's really, I think, in order to be successful in business, you need to have a vision that's greater than you. And sure, it's nice to have material goals and things like that. I don't have a problem with that. I think God wants us to be blessed and not live a life in scarcity and that kind of thing. But I think ultimately the bigger purpose, the desires of our heart need to be service to others. And it's just kind of like what y'all do and how y'all help businesses. The building where we're in, what Exodus Life does. It's such a huge, I love what they do, and it's all about that. And then, I think about how I am able to help someone who's wanting to level up their career. And it's so interesting because when you're in the weeds of what you do, you just kind of assume everybody around you kind of understands. And so being able to coach, I'm working with a lady right now that she actually was in a family business for years and years, and then when they decided to move on, I think her dad passed away, and I don't know the whole story, but she is ended up going to work for someone, and she told me, she goes, I've never had to go and do these things. I've been on the other side of interviewing, so having you help me is huge. And knowing that you're helping someone level up so that they can serve other people, whether it's contributing financially to an organization or to a mission project or things like that, or just even contributing to their family. Those are what's really, really important.
Well, and I know, like, I'm just sitting here looking at you, and I love you so much because you're an awesome person. And
thank you. I have always loved just spending time with you, and you're such a great networker. I think I told you that on LinkedIn the other day.
You gotta say no sometimes, but it's hard, right?
Right.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, I would just encourage people that maybe finding themselves in a transition, whether you want to jump off the cliff into business ownership like you and I have
Yeah.
done, or you're just wanting to level up in your career. Um, don't doubt those nudges that you feel within, and really pay attention, because from a Christian perspective, that's actually the Holy Spirit nudging you, and you need to not stifle that. And I think one of the biggest things for me is it's really easy to just continue to stay stuck, because that's what's comfortable and familiar.
Right.
And the unknown that's out there is scary, because you just don't know. But you're never gonna know. It's kind of like the old adage: if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So if you don't give it a try, and certainly if anybody wants to just talk, I'm definitely open. I have a calendar link for networking. So
Yeah.
And then if you want to level up, I have a calendar link for that, and can definitely help anyone in that area if they want. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, so contact information. How does someone get in touch with you?
Well, definitely LinkedIn is the best way. Just DM me there. My email address is beverly@cssar.com. I kept the same email. My new company is Career Success Strategies.
There you go.
And reach out to me, and I'll happily send you a calendar link to connect with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. And I can't wait to publish this episode, because I know that it's going to inspire someone, and I'm certain that you're going to have someone jump on a webinar soon
Yeah.
and have a few new followers.
Yes.
At least. So
Absolutely.
thank
Thank
you
you.
again. And so whatever time of day it is for you that you're catching this podcast, I hope that it is blessed for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Spotlight